You think your life disappears as it passes, but nothing is truly lost. Somewhere it is written and watching you back. Most days, memory feels like a private room, a soft place inside the skull, a flicker you own. But there are moments when it does not behave like that. A scent opens a doorway. A sentence lands like it was waiting for you. A dream returns with the weight of a document, and you realize something unsettling. Your mind is not the whole archive. It is only the reading lamp. Behind what you remember, there is architecture, rooms behind rooms, shelves you never built, corridors you never walked. You have been living beside a library, not in some distant heaven, not in superstition, in you, near you, always. And the first sign is not knowledge. It is the feeling of being observed, not by a person, by a record. This is where the book appears, not as a holy object you can hold, as a presence you can approach, a silent volume that seems to already know your name, a page that does not wait for your permission to exist. Then the second symbol arrives, the one most people avoid, the mirror. Because the library is not built to flatter you, it does not preserve your preferred story. It preserves what is true. You open the book, and you expect information. You expect dates, explanations, proof. Instead, you meet reflection. You meet pattern. You meet the hidden shape of what you have been becoming. The record does not only store, it responds, it watches you back. And something deeper speaks from within that place. Not loud, not theatrical, quiet. As if it has been speaking the entire time. And only now your attention has grown still enough to hear it. I am a voice speaking softly. I exist from the first. I dwell within the silence that surrounds every one of them. So the prologue is not a claim. It is a threshold. You stand before an inner door, not locked, not guarded, simply unseen until the right moment. And once you sense it, you cannot unsense it. Somewhere inside you, a library is awake. And somewhere inside that library, a mirror is already facing you. You did not arrive here fully intact. You arrived narrowed, softened, partially erased. This is not punishment. It is the cost of entering time. If you remembered everything at once, you would not be able to live a single day. You would not be able to choose. You would not be able to love anyone as they are in front of you now. You would be drowned by totality. So the veil is laid gently over the soul, not to destroy you, to make experience possible. We can feel this in ordinary life. You walk through your own days and do not notice the missing shelves. You speak your own name and do not hear how little it contains. You look into the mirror and think you are seeing the whole person. But something keeps tugging at the edges. A blank page you never agreed to leave blank. A corridor you sense but cannot enter. A witness you cannot quite locate. This is why the library feels uncanny. It does not appear as a new place. It appears as a place you forgot was already there. And the forgetting is not stupidity. It is design. Incarnation is compression. A life is a single volume, pulled from an immeasurable archive. You are given a chapter. You are given a body. You are given a sequence of hours. And you are asked to read by dim light. So most people live with their attention turned outward. They never notice the unseen record behind them. They never suspect that their days are being inscribed. They never feel that the book is not only inside the mind, but around it. The mirror too stays covered. Because if it were uncovered too soon, it would undo the persona. It would reveal the pattern before the person could bear it. So the veil protects you from the violence of premature truth. But the veil has a weakness. It cannot survive contact with real awakening. The gospel of truth describes the turning point with a strange simplicity. Such is the way of those who have cast ignorance aside from them like sleep, not fought it, not argued with it, cast it aside. As if forgetting is not defeated by effort, but by recognition. As if the veil lifts the moment you realize there is a veil. And once you sense that, your life begins to feel double. One layer is the visible routine. The other is the hidden archive that has been recording you quietly. You are still in the river of time. But now you suspect there is a room beside the river, a room with shelves, a room with pages, a room with a mirror waiting to be faced. The first time the book opens, it rarely feels religious. It feels personal, almost surgical. A dream arrives with a precision you can't explain, not symbolic in the vague way, specific, as if a page was pressed against your sleep and left ink behind. Then, in the waking day, a coincidence repeats the dream's shape. A phrase spoken by a stranger, a title on a shelf, a number you keep meeting. A name you haven't said in years suddenly appears in your path. You tell yourself it is nothing. And yet it keeps happening. Not loudly, persistently. That is how the library becomes interactive. It does not respond to curiosity. It responds to sincerity. When your attention becomes clean, when you stop hunting for entertainment and start asking for truth, the shelves feel closer. The air changes. The silence thickens. And the book is no longer an idea. It is a presence. You don't read it like information. You meet it like something that has been waiting. A sentence pierces you, and you know it did not come from your ordinary mind. Not because it is supernatural, because it is exact. It names you with a kind of accuracy you did not consent to. This is the uncanny warmth of it. The record is not cold. It is intimate. It reveals without accusation. It remembers without drama. It simply shows you what has always been inscribed beneath your forgetting. And you start to understand why the old texts speak the way they do. They don't flatter the seeker. They instruct the posture. Desist not seeking in the day with the night, until ye find the mysteries of purification. That is not motivational language. It is a description of how the archive opens. You don't force it open. You outlast your own distraction. You keep returning. You keep approaching with the same quiet honesty. And slowly, the book begins to answer in patterns rather than proclamations. But the book is only one symbol, because every opening has a second movement. You sense the mirror nearby still covered, and you realize the record is not here to satisfy curiosity about past lives or secret timelines. It is here to show you the shape you keep repeating. The book opens. and somewhere beside it, the mirror prepares to look back. The book opens, and you expect distance. You expect to look down at the record, to study it like a map, to extract something useful, to close it again. But the library does not work like that, because the moment the page turns, you feel it. You are not the only reader. Something in the record is looking back. This is where the mirror becomes unavoidable. At first, it is subtle. A line that seems to describe a choice you never told anyone about. A pattern you thought was random. A fear you dressed as wisdom. A devotion you disguised as practicality. You came for memory. You find repetition. Not the kind that comforts, the kind that reveals. What you retrieve is not trivia. It is trajectory. The record does not only show what happened, it shows what keeps happening through you. The same doorway, the same avoidance, the same hunger, the same moment where you turn away from the inner voice and call it realism. And then the timelines begin to blur. A past scene rises, but it feels present. A future possibility appears, but it feels remembered. You realize the reading room is not after. It is now. The present is the only place the library can be entered, because the present is where you either repeat or change. And this is why the mirror is frightening. Not because it shows monsters, because it shows authorship. You begin to sense that the world you live in has layers, that appearances are costumes, worn by deeper arrangements. That ignorance is not just not knowing, it is misseeing. The old text names this fracture between appearance and origin with an eerie plainness. Something came out of her which was imperfect and different from her appearance. Different from her appearance. That is the sentence that follows you through the aisles, because it describes more than a mythic event. It describes the condition of a life lived without reflection. How much of what you call you is appearance? How much is borrowed light? How much is a story built to survive? The mirror does not accuse, it clarifies. It shows you the cost of every delay. It shows you the hidden economy of your attention. It shows you how a single, unexamined belief can write a decade. And still, the tone of the library remains intimate, not cruel, not cold. It is as if the record is saying, look, not to punish you, to free you from illusion. Because once you see the pattern, you can no longer call it fate. You can only call it choice repeated. And that is the true power of the mirror. It turns memory into responsibility, and responsibility into possibility. When the library first appears, you can become hungry, not for truth, for certainty. You want the book to tell you who you are. You want it to explain your pain. You want it to give you a clean storyline, a reason, a destiny you can hold. And this is where false archives are born. Because not every vision is the record. Not every download is real. Sometimes it is only the mind doing what it has always done, filling silence with pattern, turning longing into doctrine, turning fear into revelation. Ego can fabricate an entire library in a single night, shelves full of flattering names, pages that crown you, mirrors that only reflect greatness. And the danger is not that it feels mystical. The danger is that it feels satisfying. Fear can do the same. It can turn the library into a courtroom. Every page becomes accusation. Every reflection becomes doom. You begin reading the record like a sentence. You begin treating your life like evidence. Both are distortions, because the true book does not entertain you. It sobers you. And the true mirror does not punish you. It clarifies. So we need a method, not a method of proof, a method of discernment. You feel it in the body first. A false archive tightens you. It hardens your certainty. It makes you special or condemned. It gives you conclusions too quickly. It makes you speak in final sentences. A true page does something different. It humbles without humiliating. It opens space in the chest. It removes a layer of self-deception without replacing it with a new costume. It leaves you quieter than you were before. This is why awakening is often described as waking from sleep, not winning an argument. Such is the way of those who have cast ignorance aside from them like sleep. Sleep is full of images. So is the false library. And the test is simple. Do you wake up more honest, more clear, more able to love what is real? Or do you wake up inflated or frightened or addicted to signs? The library is not a theater. It is a threshold. And when you approach it cleanly, the book becomes less dramatic, but more immense. Because what waits behind the personal archive is not a fantasy of who you were. It is the hidden record that exceeds one life. At a certain depth, the library stops feeling personal. Not because it becomes cold, because it becomes vast. You came looking for memories, moments, scenes. The biography you can point to and say, "This is me." But the book keeps opening past that shelf. You start to sense that what is stored here is not only your story, it is the shape of experience itself. As if life is not a series of losses, but a series of inscriptions. This is where the word Akashic becomes useful, not as proof, not as a system you can certify, as mythic language for a real inner threshold. A way of saying, there is more memory than the brain can hold. You feel it when a memory arrives that has no clear origin, not fantasy, not a past event you forgot, something else. A feeling that is older than your habits, a sorrow that does not belong to one scene. A recognition that lands before you can explain it. And then you notice the mirror changing. It stops reflecting only your choices. It starts reflecting forces, the same themes repeating through generations. The same hunger in different costumes, the same fear training different minds, the same longing for the real, trapped inside new languages. The book becomes immense, and the mirror becomes cosmic. Yet it remains intimate because the library is not out there. It is approached from inside, and the deeper you go, the quieter you become. That quiet is not emptiness. It is the sense of a living intelligence behind the record, not a judge, not a machine. A voice in the archive. I am a voice speaking softly. I exist from the first. I dwell within the silence that surrounds every one of them. When that line is felt rather than analyzed, something shifts. You stop treating the record as information. You begin to sense it as presence, not a database, a field, not a timeline, a depth, And the most stabilizing realization arrives here. If experience is stored, then nothing you have lived is truly wasted. Not the love, not the failure, not the strange repeating pattern you couldn't break. It is all written, not to trap you, to show you what you are carrying. This is the hidden mercy of the library. It does not tell you you are special. It tells you you are not alone in your patterns. And then it offers the one thing that actually changes a life. Clarity, not spectacle, not certainty, a steady light that makes the next step honest. The library is not meant to replace your life. That sounds obvious. But it becomes necessary the moment the book starts to feel more real than the day. Because once you sense the hidden record, ordinary life can seem thin. People can seem asleep. Work can seem pointless. The world can feel like noise. This is the first temptation, to use the library as an exit, to treat higher memory as a private possession, to retreat into signs, dreams, synchronicities, to build a new identity around being the kind of person who knows. But that is still drift. Just drift in a different stream. True reading does not pull you away from the world. It returns you to it, cleaner. It makes your choices more honest. It makes your speech less performative. It makes you less hungry for validation because you have seen what validation can't touch. That is the real function of the mirror. Not to give you visions, to expose the hidden motive behind your actions, right here in the day. So the practice is simple, and it's the opposite of escapism. You bring the lantern into the ordinary. When you catch yourself repeating an old pattern, a familiar avoidance, a familiar self-betrayal, a familiar hunger, you pause long enough to recognize the inscription, not as guilt, as reading. This page again. And once you recognize it, you have a choice you didn't have before, because unconscious repetition is what keeps the record writing the same chapter. A Gnostic text like the Gospel of Truth frames awakening precisely as the end of unconsciousness, casting ignorance aside like sleep. earlychristianwritings.com. So the Akashic becomes practical when it changes your behavior, when it helps you stop lying to yourself, when it helps you stop mistaking urgency for meaning, when it helps you stop treating your life as something that will begin later. The library does not demand that you become mystical. It demands that you become responsible. Because once you know there is a record, you cannot pretend you are merely accidental. You cannot pretend your attention is irrelevant. You cannot pretend your days are disposable. The book doesn't need you to worship it. It needs you to live as if what you do matters. And then something quietly profound happens. You stop searching for the next sign. You stop chasing spectacle. You stop trying to see the whole archive. You begin to read the only page you can actually change. This one. There is a quiet moment that comes after true insight, not relief, not triumph. A kind of stillness. Because once you have stood in the library, you cannot pretend your life is only passing. You cannot say, it doesn't matter. Not honestly. You have seen that experience leaves a trace. That attention is inscription. That the book does not merely hold your past, but reveals the pattern underneath your becoming. And this is where the mirror becomes gentler. not because it shows you less, because it shows you more clearly. It shows you that destiny is not a sentence. It is a weave. You are not fated in the crude sense. But you are patterned. You repeat what you do not see. You keep circling what you refuse to name. You re-enter the same rooms because the door inside you still believes it is locked. And yet the record also shows something else. When you see the pattern, it loosens. When you refuse the old reaction, the page changes. When you act from the witness instead of the wound, the ink shifts. So the library is not a prison of what has been. It is a threshold of what can be woven differently. This is the turning. The book remains open, but you stop clutching it. The mirror remains facing you, but you stop flinching. You begin to understand why the archive exists at all, not to make you obsessed with memory, not to tempt you into cosmic trivia, but to restore authorship, to return the pen to your hand, to reveal that your life is not merely happening to you. It is being written through you. And now, something new enters the room, a sensation like tension in the air, like threads pulled taut in darkness, like unseen hands working without hurry. Because if there is a record, there may also be a craft. If there is a page, there may also be a loom. If there is a pattern, there may also be weavers, not as characters to worship, as forces to recognize. This is the next threshold, from record to weaving, from insight to trajectory. The library does not end the story. It points to the structure behind the story, and you feel it now, like a door opening without sound, as if the page you just read is beginning to unravel into thread, as if your memory, once a private light, is becoming part of a wider design, as if the next chapter is already moving toward you